I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Jules Sains is my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to talk DS spin-offs of other characters who were in the show, who they could have did individual series with. So I'll start off with two names, obviously. Chris Jennings, Amy Jennings, and Sabrina.
So,
Three names.
are we jumping into the spinoffs?
Yes, those
Okay.
three those three characters get, let's say if those three characters got their own spin-offs. Where would you have liked to seen it set
Wow.
from a city standpoint?
Wow. So wait. So this is Chris Jennings, Jennings, and Tom, or
Well, just Chris, Amy, and
oh,
Sabrina.
Sabrina. So
Yeah.
this would be after Sabrina's okay, and she's trying to help Chris and all of that. Well,
Yes.
yeah. So that's where would you be taking a werewolf story? I think the what I would definitely do, I would set it someplace out west. So you get that sort of mestizo, Native American kind of flair, because often werewolves are associated with that ethnicity in a lot of literature. I know in the White Wolf games, they have that quality, and so you would want that sort of strong presence, which would have been kind of hip in the mid 70s, and probably there would be two warring tribes of werewolves or were creatures or something, and that would be the on-running story in the background. Um, and the Amy would be a little older, and so maybe she would be in romancing one of these people in the tribe, and they would think that she has some sort of hidden shape-shifting ability or something like that was part of the curse, but it has never emerged. And she may actually become the big bad in the series. But Chris is important in the series because, as much as he hates being a werewolf, he has a pivotal role because, like Barnabas, he is not dynastic. He's not a werewolf who was made a werewolf by someone else. And there's this line of power, where you're subservient to the person who turned you into a werewolf, and that werewolf subservient to the one who turned him into a werewolf, et cetera, et cetera. He's outside of that, and so he has no real they have no tie over him or anything like that, or ascot or cummerbund. But there's nothing they can really do, and that you have one of the tribes ends up picking Chris as their messianic champion, and they do end up triggering Amy's powers, whatever they are. And and again, she has all this, she has gypsy blood. So they all do. So that could be, God knows what you want to make that. And she becomes the this principal power figure for the other tribe, the evil tribe of the werewolves. Because you have the good hippie tribe that's just trying to be at one with nature, blah blah blah, and then you have the tribe who wants to subjugate humanity and all of that. So that's what I would do.
Cool. Cool. That's awesome. I,
What would you do?
what I'd like to see is you talked about setting it out west. I would like to see it either in a very large city like California, set it right before the 80s. So right before the turn, like 1979. And so Amy's little older, like you're saying. And Chris has a very interesting job. He has a job in construction. And every time Chris feels like things are going to get normal, there's a full moon, and but instead of just killing innocent people, he ends up in this situation where he keeps killing criminals. And so the police are like, so do we have a sort of like in a vein of Death Wish? Do we have a vigilante? And what the hell's
Does he
going
know
on?
he's doing it? Does he know he's doing it, or does he just wake up and find that he's killed criminals and now the
He's wait,
mob's after?
yeah, he wakes up and finds he's killed criminals, and he's like, oh my god, what did I do? What did I do? So Amy, you talked about her dating. I would say Amy is in love with one of the mobster's kids, sort of touch upon what you
Yeah.
were doing. And she knows what Chris is not, he's not meaning to. And she has to make a decision. Well, do I leave? Do we leave LA, this big, conglomerate city, or do we stay? And Chris tells, her and Sabrina, you need to go because but they don't. They end up, Sabrina ends up getting killed by one of the gangs in a crossfire of all this because to touch where it's rival gangs instead of rival tribes go down that road. Now, for if I were to do tribes the way you were doing, I would do like the Navajo tribe in Arizona. Uh, go down that road where
Okay.
it's Skinwalker sort of ideal. And there's Alan.
Wacky. This will be the shortest podcast we've ever done.
No, it will not.
Who's that?
No, it will not. So, Alan, we're talking about spin-offs
Uh-huh.
for Dark Shadows. So we start with Chris Jennings, Sabrina, and Amy. What would you like to see as a spin-off of those three?
Yeah. I was partial to the werewolf story when I was a kid, so probably that one might be interesting.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
What city would you set it in? Where would the characters be for you?
Well, I'd probably set it in Bangor,
There you go. There you go.
How big a
my
city is?
hometown. What's that?
How big a city is it? What's its feel?
Not very big. Its feel is that it's a riverside town, 40,000. Maybe an additional 20 or 30,000 outside towns.
So, what sort of series? What would be the feel of a series that would take place there?
Let's see. It would probably
Insular.
yeah. It would probably be like a modern day, um, uh, Run for Your Life or something like that.
Okay.
Basically, or maybe not Run for Your Life, but basically hidden identity kind of stuff. Always in danger of being discovered or exposed. Somebody comes up from Collinsport to Bangor on business and sees him, or this, that, and the other thing, because he's done too much damage down on the coast, and so he's had to leave town. His sister's looking for him. Various and sundry points of interest and stress.
Nice. So let's do Quentin next. Where would you guys put Quentin? What city? What would you guys like to see done? Quentin as a spinoff, Patrick.
Oh, I would have it be almost an anthology series where he's in a different, almost sort of like Quantum Leap a little bit, but it's a portrait of Quentin, so to speak, at all these different stages of history and time all over the world, between 1897 and 1980 or whenever the series would be taking place, and every episode would be in a different time period. But then occasionally in the seasons they would go back and do a sequel to, this is our World War One episode. Well, now we're doing a year later in World War One, but that episode may be written and aired with 2 or 3 seasons between them. So you're kind of having these cycles that go on, and there would be some overarching, nemesis or plot or something like that, no doubt involving Count Patofi, that would come back. But I would definitely have in some of the episodes, Count Patofi's a good guy, because I always suspected that he had moral inversions that kind of flip flopped back and forth. Maybe depending on the enemy, maybe just depending on his experiences and conscience.
Cool.
So yeah.
That's awesome. Alan, where would you like to see a Quentin series set and presenters?
Well, I'll just make an extension on that, that there's a time vortex in the urinal trough at the Hi Hat Lounge in Portland.
And you flush it. You never know where you're going to wind up.
Everywhere he goes, he leaves a matchbook from the Hi Hat Lounge.
The logo for the show is just a swirl.
Yeah. He looks down into the urinal trough and there's this going on.
Well, like if he has to escape to another
Yes.
time period, something like that, he's struggling to get to the journal and
Yes.
flush it in time.
Yeah, every time the vortex manifests itself, he's like on like the opening of the time tunnel, and he's just kind of
Oh Lord, in liquid, just
that's right.
Oh my gosh. I would like to see it because Quentin was a writer, Grant Douglas, right?
Mhm.
Set it in Romania because he wants to do an actual history book of the Rakosi family and their Romanian gypsy heritage. He goes there, and every time he tries to get started on the book, the gypsies find him and they burn the pages right in front of him. They're like, "No, you cannot print our secrets. The world must not know. You have to understand."
Mm.
Sort of like the Collins family, but they literally they said, "Look, we cursed you once. There ain't gonna be no curse. We will kill you if you try to print this shit." He goes, "I don't understand what happened between you and the Potofi. What caused this? What caused all of this?" And he wants to know, and they just keep telling him, "No, no." They keep an eye on him. And he goes, "Well, let me speak to King Johnny Romano." And you go, "Okay."
the
Out,
weasel.
That's
no,
right.
out walks a woman who is now King Josephine Romano. Johnny Romano takes a different form each time they die.
But
So
they're always Quentin's editor from hell.
well, that's sort of what leads him to Potofi in a sense, researching the gypsies. And you finally meet Count Potofi says, "You can help me destroy them, and I will completely lift the curse from you and restore it. No more portrait. You don't have to worry about it. So it's either you deal with the devil you know, or you say no." And that's where you leave it. So
Okay, he's always half werewolf, but
yeah.
it's sometimes the upper half, sometimes the lower half.
Mhm.
Never knows which.
There you go.
The lower half when he lives in the San Fernando Valley in the 1975.
Exactly. Did I tell you how I would do a werewolf story? My
Good.
my my werewolf concept. Well, I'm not a huge werewolf fan. I mean, I like the makeup design and things like that, but basically, you spend most of a werewolf story watching the guy whine and complain about "I just want to die."
Right, right.
Both Lon Chaney Jr. and Chris Jennings did that whole thing, which only goes
Hmm.
so far. The emo stuff. Like, well, either you do or you don't. But get it over with. Make up your mind. But then once they become a werewolf, you realize kind of boring. They just sort of wander around the woods in a plaid shirt and maybe kill somebody, but it's all sort of random. And so in my werewolf mythos, they would keep their mind except for the night of the full moon, in which they would go absolutely wolfy is nuts. But for the rest of it, on all the nights after the full moon, they are a little less werewolfian at night. Second night, they're it's pretty much the same, but they have moments of some lucidity, and the makeup's just a little more human. And it goes all the way to the night of no moon, where they are completely human. And then they start to change again. And so they there's a certain point where they begin hiding from the public at night and so on. They have a special room and all of that, but that they keep their mind for a lot of it, and so they begin to plan what they're going to do and how they're going to deal with problems depending on where they are in that phase.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would
So
be
it's
interesting.
spectrum.
Yes, a graduation or a gradual spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are nights, where they've been human, and now the moon is waxing, I
Hmm.
believe. Is that where it's coming and going? Uh,
Waxing is when it's coming. Waning is
okay,
when it's
yeah,
going.
yeah, of course, yeah. So when it's waxing, there are points where they simply are far more devious at night, far more vicious, but they still have and maybe they're a little more hirsute, but they still basically look like themselves. And those are the really interesting nights because they can draw on these instincts and powers of the
Hmm.
wolf, but have not completely gone over. And it could be that over the course of a season, a 30 episode season, that which is what they would have done in the old school. Every week they're a little closer, and it's like 24 or something. It's a one contiguous story.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
And it begins
Uh,
and ends with them as a wolf. So so you have the big splash, you get hooked, and then you wait for the big climax where they're once again the wolf completely.
Hmm.
would have it like for a werewolf story. I would have it to where they could change without the moon. They're literally shapeshifters. Um,
Oh yeah.
to where they were born werewolves, but they grew human skin. They wear human skin the way you wear a suit. Uh, so they take human form and walk around and talk like humans, look like them and shit. And no one's the wiser. But instead of a silver bullet, the only way to kill a werewolf is if you're one yourself. So only they can be killed by.
Now, is it just wolves or are there other animals?
There's other animals. There
Okay.
would be other animals, but they're very. There's not a bunch of them. I'd only have like six because if you make it too many,
Ooh,
you know what I mean.
yeah.
But yeah. So for spinoff guys, for Dark Shadow spinoff, what would is there a character you would have loved to see get a spinoff, and where would you have taken that character?
Well, I mean, one of the obvious ones is the caretaker who tells a story, about some haunted creature at Collinwood. There's a different grave every episode, and he says, "Now here lie the remains of." So I mean,
Right.
that makes its own gravy.
Mm-hmm.
Add
Yeah,
water makes its own sauce.
Yeah, I think probably Burt Devlin,
yeah,
Monster Hunter, after he's clawed his way back from South America.
Right. He
You know,
survived a crash and
yeah,
he's been in a coma and then he wakes up in a crude hospital somewhere on the edge of the jungle and maybe he doesn't even know who he is for a
and,
while or something, and he figures it out.
and indeed there was something on the wing of the plane or whatever,
Yeah.
and so that has inspired him. Oh my God, all that shit I heard about in Colin was real.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That would be cool. I'd like to see that. Uh, for a spinoff, Carolyn, obviously. Uh,
yeah,
take her down the road of she tries to find not just find Jeb, but gets into the occult heavily,
sure.
and tries to find basically the not just the origin of the Leviathan, but what was so special about Michael slash Jeb the baby, all that stuff. Uh, so she sort of trying to find any sort of research she can.
Yeah, Sam Hall
So the
talks about
recur-
that in the last What Happened to Barnabas and Company, that she becomes
Yeah,
an expert on the occult.
yeah,
so the villain for that, the recurring villain for that is David, who has
yeah.
become a heavy metal performer, who uses all of these satanic trappings, a lot of satanic panic stuff. But it turns out he really is this Crowley-esque figure, attempting to use the frenzies of the crowd and all of that he's drawing on and
Hmm.
building power and power. Carolyn doesn't believe it for the first season or so, and then she has to confront the revelation of who he actually is and then stop him. Stop him or convert him. one or the other.
Nice, nice.
So,
Alan?
yeah.
Sorry.
Let me see. Willie Loomis.
There you
Um, who has moved outside of Logansport, nearer to Wincliffe, and for a while works there, but and discovers all sorts of things going on in the basement of
Sure. Weird
Wincliffe.
experiments.
Weird experiments, rituals, all very of supernatural stuff that he's tried to escape from by moving away from Collinsport, but and figuring, well, Wincliffe's a great place to go. I know the place. I can work there. Julia's not there anymore, but
I
you know,
So in the pilot, Julia shows up at his cabin or his apartment or whatever,
mm-hmm.
Bruised and bloody and dying with, a cult symbol has been carved into her and so on and so forth, just like begging, you've got to stop him, you've got to stop him before she can say
Yeah.
anymore. She's dead.
Right.
And so it's trying to investigate and avenge Julia's death. That might be a propelling force for that.
Yes. And he's already there, doesn't realize at first that Wincliffe is the center of all of this sort of thing, because he's there working as a handyman and doing various things around the grounds, and happens to start to focus on it a little bit more because of because he discovers Julia uh, in terrible shape, and she's warning him about this, that, and the other thing. So yeah, that would be an interesting way to go. Almost a Kolchak of Wincliffe kind of thing, where he
Sure.
keeps running into these people and these things. Only he's not writing stories about them. He's trying to write them off, so to speak, and bring things back to normal so that he can be normal again.
You ever read any of the Silver John stories by Manly Wade Wellman?
No, not
Heard of these?
yeah.
John the Balladeer? It was sort of, kind of rural, I think, Appalachian monster hunter of the old school, because these things were written God knows how long ago.
Uh-huh.
And kind of American folk horror. And you could do that, but you do it with Buzz Hackett.
Yeah.
Backroads traveled Buzz
Right.
Hackett,
Right.
and that every week he runs into some new weird supernatural thing, American folk horror that he has to deal with in his own inimitable fashion.
And it all starts by having a beer blast in his cousin's place up in the hills outside of Collinsport, or some
Sure.
other place. And
Werewolves busted up.
he becomes the anti-Ghost Rider because he goes around
Yeah,
with his motorcycle. Find people
like
people figure after he has successful encounters with a few of these things or whatever occurrences, and gets through them, he develops a reputation in the
sure,
backwoods.
he runs a personal ad or something
Yeah,
like that, like the
yeah,
Equalizer.
yeah,
So he's checking his post office box or his phone mailbox or something, and maybe he takes the case, maybe he doesn't,
yeah.
because most of them are crazies who leave messages for him. And there's a few episodes where he just gets caught up in that and realizes they're just
They're just
nuts.
crazies, and they won't even give him enough beer money to get back to town or whatever.
Yeah, but I would love to watch Michael Hage in something like that. I think
Yeah,
it's great.
Willie Loomis, Vampire Hunter.
yeah.
He would
Sure.
go to London, and the person he would learn from would be Professor House on Von Helsing. Why not?
Who will have been referred to him by Stokes or
There
somebody
you go.
like
There you
that.
go. Why not? That'd be really cool. And he doesn't run at first. He runs into these kids who are dressing up like vampires because their parents are rich and let them do whatever the hell they
Right,
want.
they're emos and
They're
goth,
emos,
all
and
that stuff.
but
Yeah,
he slowly learns that they're being controlled by a real one.
yeah.
So there you go.
They're thralls. They're all
That's it.
thralls.
That's it. That's it. Why not? Oh my gosh. I I would like to see Buzz something with Buzz Hackett. That was a very interesting character. Um, Definitely for sure. He was so cool. That was awesome. That was an awesome character.
My idea for Buzz is that he would have. This isn't necessarily a spinoff, but in a better world, uh, for some reason, he and Liz would start taking a shine to each other, not romantically, but just they would somehow respect one another.
He'd
And,
bankroll his adventures or whatever. Yeah.
well, she hires him to replace Bill Malloy as her main troubleshooter. And as it turns out, Buzz is very effective at this. Once Buzz decides to take a job, I ain't wearing no tie,
Yeah.
but once he takes the job, he actually is a worthy successor to Bill Malloy. And that but he would be solving all sorts of weird mysteries and problems in and around
Mhm.
Collinsport and report to her almost like she's Robin Masters
Yeah.
on
Right.
PI. Yeah.
That'd be cool. Really. Yeah. Uh, Mrs. Johnson. Uh,
Wrong.
And
yeah,
Mrs.
yeah,
Johnson and the
yeah,
boiled dinner.
yeah. The boiled dinner. There's no dinner she can't boil. There you go.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, there's a lot of characters on Dark Shadows that you'd have loved to see. I do wish they would have, because when they did the Charles Delaware Tate thing in the future, I thought, wait, did he make his own portrait at first? No, it's a mechanic. It's sort of Wizard of
Yeah.
Oz. Sort of wish they went the other way with that. They didn't though. Um, but yeah, I sort of wonder, like, does Potofi recruit new agents? Because if he's in the future,
Well, it's Harry Johnson, of course.
right? Oh my gosh, yeah, very
Well,
good.
imagine that you inherit the Tate collection. You
Yeah,
inherit the Tate collection, and you realize that every single painting that has something horrible in it is something that came true. So there's a little spin on Night Gallery,
yeah,
and that you a curse or something like that forces you to have to confront whatever is in these paintings one after another.
yeah. That would be really, really cool. Uh, is there anything you guys want to add before we get go?
Uh,
London would be a great setting for one of these.
Yes.
Cadogan Square and the real
what?
Collins family.
Yeah, I had imagined that Willie inherits Barnabas's pad in Cadogan Square,
Mhm.
and then Willie somehow discovers that he's on the House of Lords. He's the descendant of that, and so part of it would be a sort of almost Banachek like thing, but but where not quite Banachek, but where he is in the middle of a class and group of people totally unlike he is,
Himself, yeah.
but he is working on trying to become a proper Englishman, and he has of course
Mhm.
an acerbic butler who actually has great fondness for him.
Yeah.
Although they
Turns out he's like the first Lord of Holling's head or something,
exactly, and so that's what brings him to England. He's
Yeah.
got the pad, and he finds out, and so as this hipster sleazebag English lord, he's trying to wear the costumes. And I can see the opening credits now where he's constantly being dressed up, by the butler, and then he turns around, he's eating a hot dog or something like that, and getting it
Yeah.
all over his cravat. Uh, uh, showing up at the House of Lords with a bunch of floozies on his arm, like Tony.
Yeah.
Um, but he has heart, and he's sincere, more sincere than these phony English types,
Right.
and he's solving the problems that they turn a blind eye to.
Yes, because he crosses class distinctions and
That's right.
can cut deals with working class people and work with the Labor Party and do all the things that the rest of the peerage wouldn't dream of doing.
I mean, yeah, imagine a Cagney and Lacey era John Carlin
Yeah.
in the middle of that, nice and rumpled and flabby,
Yeah.
the big mustache, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's a show.
Yeah.
Really don't. Oh my gosh. To see Willie too as a rich man would be really interesting too.
And Hobson is constantly trying to civilize him, and
Yes.
occasionally it works, occasionally it doesn't. And, Hobson's constantly seemingly at his throat, but loves the lad nonetheless.
Yes.
And is
Yeah.
looking out for him.
Yeah. Trying to keep him from stumbling and becoming a laughing stock.
Yeah,
Teaching him the
and
way
believe,
of a gentleman and all of that sort of thing. Yes.
and believing that he does have something truly noble within him, and in a way that sometimes these series would do. Hobson would be played by Jonathan Frid. Frid would not be playing Barnabas,
Right.
this other character, and Willie would never remark on the fact he looks like Barnabas.
Mm-hmm.
That would never be it. But that's who you would cast to keep the chemistry, but kind of shake it up.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome to see.
That's a good show. I've watched that show.
Yeah.
We all watch that show. Like good to see. But yeah. Guys, tomorrow we're going to do 1995 with Samantha. We will do Elvis and Nixon Saturday, and then it'll be Alan's turn to pick for Sunday. I have something. I have something very special planned for Monday.
We'll get a shot and have it cleaned up.
Cogitate on this title for Sunday.
Dark Passage.
Dark Passage.
Yes. I've
Bogart.
seen it.
What is that? I should know that.
I've seen it.
It's Humphrey Bogart, and it's Bogey and Bacall
Mm-hmm.
in San Francisco.
Okay.
The guy that has his face changed because he's been a criminal, but he kind of pulls out of it by solving this mystery.
Right.
All right, guys. Link to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows book about it's going to be in the description box. Link to Alan Gallant's YouTube channel. Colin Sport After Dark is going to be in the description box. I will see you guys tomorrow night for 1995. I have a shitload of questions for tomorrow.
Just call me
I'll have
sleepy.
a few shitloads more.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you, Joel.
Yeah.